Welcome, everybody, to episode 46 of Adapter Parish, where we look at 3 different versions of the comedy classic Arthur. As always, before we get into it, let's talk about our next episode. In 2 weeks, on Tuesday, July 16th, we'll be staying in New York City, but things are going to get a little more stressful. We'll be looking at the classic tale of what happens when criminal ingenuity meets intractable bureaucracy in The Taking of Pelham 123. We read the original novel by Martin Friedgood, writing as John Gotti. We watched the 1974 movie starring Walter Matthau and Robert Shaw. We watched the 1998 TV movie starring Edward James Olmos and Vincent D'Onofrio. And finally, we watched the 2009 theatrical remake starring Denzel Washington and John Travolta. We get to talk about some truly insane stuff in this episode, and we can't wait for you to hear it. That's in 2 weeks. If you're joining us for the first time, we sincerely hope you enjoy today's episode and that you subscribe to get every new episode the day it's released. We're always looking for suggestions, so don't hesitate to send them our way. If you have any comments, questions, or corrections that you'd like to hear on the show, remember to email adapterparishcast@gmail.com or tweet at us using the AdaptCast hashtag. If you enjoy the show, we'd love it if you would share that with the world by leaving a rating and review wherever you listen to podcasts. You can find the show notes from this and all other episodes at adapterparishcast.com. And with that, on with the show, Dudley Moore and others as Arthur. Welcome to Adapter Parish, a podcast about adaptation. I'm Jeremy Latour.
And I'm Arielle Lipshaw. Hi, how are you?
I'm good. I'm drinking a martini.
How many olives are in that martini?
7. There's a lot. They're very small, and I like olives. I don't see a problem with that. If I'm going to make myself a martini, I'm going to make it the way I want it.
I mean, that's fine. Just like our main character.
Right.
Arthur.
You may ask, why did I pick a martini? I guess scotch is his drink.
Yeah, I mean,
more than anything.
He drinks martinis, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we are talking about Arthur, the 1981 movie, not Arthur, the PBS children's show from our childhoods, where Arthur is an aardvark.
Like, no joke. I don't know what your experience has been this week, but I've been like telling friends and coworkers that like this was the upcoming episode we were recording, and like literally half of the people. I think it's an age thing. Like, yeah. I think anyone who I told who was under the age of 25 was like, "Ooh, the aardvark." Has that been your experience?
No, but also Arthur has been in the news this week.
Yes, he has.
Arthur the aardvark, because his beloved teacher, the rat, got married to another gentleman.
Do you know what his name is?
I think it's like Mr. Ratman.
I don't think it's Mr. Ratman.
And everyone's really excited about it.
No, it's super exciting.
We live in an age where a gay rat on a children's television show can get married to another gay rat, and everyone is like super cool with it.
Did he also marry a rat?
I mean, yeah. I mean, they're all animals. He's some kind of animal. I didn't read the article thoroughly.
I know nothing about this, but I'm also not pretending that I know something about it.
I read the headline more than the article.
Unlike my co-host. Yes, but we are not talking about the delightful little aardvark who is a child.
No.
We are talking about a grown man who like is
kind of a child. And is a little man.
Yes, he is small.
Yeah.
He totally is. And also does some bad things. Anyway,
we'll get into it.
We'll get into that stuff.
Okay.
But yeah, we're talking about Arthur.
Yes. So let's introduce this, because I feel like this is going to be a slightly more obscure episode than some we have done in the past. I mean, everyone's read Jane Eyre.
Or at least has some exposure to it.
Yeah, I don't know that everyone's seen Arthur.
I would say, I'd even go a step further, and I would say everyone has read Jane Eyre or knows a person who has.
Yeah.
But I feel like with Arthur, if people haven't seen it, not everyone can immediately say, oh yeah, that's like my friend so-and-so's favorite movie.
Yeah, this correct.
Yeah.
So would you like to read, we don't have the box, but would you like to read the plot summary from Amazon?
Okay. It's really, really long.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Dudley Moore is hilarious as a drunken playboy who decides to give up his inheritance for true love Liza Minnelli in this smash hit comedy.
I mean, as one sentence summaries go, it's not inaccurate.
I like the implication of it, though, the way they use the actors' names, that like it's Dudley Moore and Liza Minnelli.
Yeah.
It's not their character names.
No, it's Dudley Moore and Liza Minnelli.
playing themselves.
Essentially. Yeah, Liza Minnelli playing Linda Marola.
Yeah, Liza Minnelli playing someone who's like lower, like middle class.
I guess that is inaccurate.
Right.
Because she's Hollywood royalty.
Exactly.
Liza Minnelli, by the way, like, I think the fact that she sounds exactly like Judy Garland made me always think that she looked like Judy Garland. And then I saw a picture of her with her dad, and I was like, oh, no, she looks like her dad. They're identical.
And this is a cool episode because, like, we just did Father of the Bride 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And, like, her dad is Vincente Minnelli,
Yes.
who directed the original Father of the Bride.
That's
so
right.
we're keeping everything in the family. And we just did A Star is Born recently, too.
Yeah, no, I mean, these people seem to come up again and again on our shows.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, sometimes it's Charlton Heston over and over and over again.
Right. But I don't think Charlton Heston is a dynasty the way like Garland and Minnelli are.
No, I suppose.
So I like, just to be clear, I'd never really seen this movie. We watched it together a few years ago.
Yeah.
Because you really like this movie.
Yeah, I do really like it.
And I'd never watched it, which was funny because like I grew up in a household where my parents really liked this movie, and it was clearly something that was part of their experience because there were lines in this movie that they would like say to me when I was a kid. Okay, I'm gonna say this is like the greatest line in the movie. It's not the greatest line in the movie. It was just the one I heard my entire childhood, which was,
Hobson,
Yes.
do you know what I'm gonna do?
No, I don't.
I'm gonna take a bath.
I'll alert the media.
like
Your mom still says that.
Oh.
I've heard your mom say that.
Totally.
Yeah.
All the time.
Yeah.
But I'd never actually watched it all the way through. And I remember when we actually sat down to watch it, I didn't quite know what to expect. And like, it's a goddamn delight.
Yeah, I mean, in our Father of the Bride episode, which, like, if you want to peek behind the curtain, we just recorded yesterday, even though you heard it 2 weeks ago.
I was actively lying to people when I said 2 weeks. I was trying to keep the illusion going.
That's fair. We're a little behind. We talked about how much I enjoy a plot with no conflict. And I think that's part of why this movie just purely does it for me. Like, there's a little conflict, but
This movie has absolute conflict.
okay, but there's no villain.
No. Okay, there's no villain.
There's no villain.
That's fair.
For sure there's no villain.
There are antagonists, though.
Yeah, but
like
everyone's-
Susan's dad is 100% like the closest thing this has to a villain.
I suppose, I mean, he does try to kill Arthur at the end.
yeah,
like, he literally tries to kill him with
Yeah.
a knife. Maybe we should go into the plot.
Would you like to take us through that, please?
Yes. Okay. Arthur is the heir to a fabulously wealthy businessman. And he has sort of squandered his life up to now through drinking and promiscuity.
Mm-hmm.
And he is played by Dudley Moore.
Yes.
He has one person in all the world whom he loves, and that is his faithful manservant, Hobson.
You don't think he loves Bitterman?
He loves Bitterman, but Bitterman, I don't think, has been with him since he was a child.
No, that's true.
Yeah.
Bitterman is his driver.
His chauffeur. Yeah, Bitterman's great. But he has one person in all the world whom he loves, and that is Hobson, his valet, and who is played by John Gielgud. And they have,
Sir
John Gielgud.
Yeah.
Yes. And Arthur's dilemma is that his father wishes for him to grow up and become responsible and therefore one day take the reins of the family business, which is worth like $1 billion.
What do they do?
Real estate.
How many times have you watched this movie?
I have no idea what they do. It is not ever mentioned and it does not matter.
No,
They
but
are
for
just
real though,
very
how many
rich.
times have you watched this movie?
I mean, at least a dozen.
Okay.
I have no idea what they do.
My only point is what they do doesn't matter.
It does
that
not
much.
matter. It's like $1 billion. That's all that matters.
They have
It's
a lot of money.
It's the family fortune. And he, in order to secure this family fortune and his future, is supposed to marry the daughter of a fellow businessman whose name is Bert Johnson, and the daughter's name is Susan, and he does not like her and does not want to marry her, but everybody wants him to marry her.
Mm-hmm.
In the midst of this conflict, he meets a young woman from Queens named Linda Marola, and they fall in love,
Mm-hmm.
played by Liza Minnelli. And essentially the conflict throughout the movie is he's supposed to marry with the rich girl, but he wants to marry the poor girl. But if he marries the poor girl, they're going to disinherit him. And his inner turmoil is whether he can live without the money. And in the end, he decides he can. And he calls off the wedding, essentially at the altar. And he goes off to marry Linda and be poor. And then there's sort of a deus ex machina where the grandmother comes in and says, you can have the money after all, be well, live happily ever after. And Hobson dies.
Yeah, this is God, the entire time you were saying all of that, I was preparing myself to say a thing about, like, we say spoiler alert, like, you should watch it first and everything. Until you said Hobson dies, I wasn't even going to say anything because, like, the central conflict of the movie is not knowing what happens has nothing to do with the enjoyment of the movie.
Right. Which is kind of why I said there was no conflict.
Right. But the Hobson dying thing, like, I would say that's actually something that I don't know if that helps knowing before you go into it.
I don't know.
It is a light plot.
It is light.
It's a thin plot.
Yes.
Why is this movie good? I have a question. I really want to know this because you've seen it many times.
Yeah.
I've seen it multiple times. I enjoy it. I know you love it. Why does this movie work?
Here's what I think.
Because it shouldn't.
It should not. It shouldn't work. And we have seen a version of it, not to spoil anything, that didn't work.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I was thinking about this as we were watching. And my observation was that this character would be so incredibly easy to make him totally unsympathetic. You wouldn't have to work very hard to do something about his affect or behavior to make you not like him.
Mm-hmm.
But it never happens.
No.
It is consistent throughout that you love him.
Like, can I just go through his actions?
Yes.
Okay, here's Arthur Bach.
Yes.
If you're listening and you haven't seen it, you're good. If you're listening and you have seen it, try to put the movie out of your mind for a second as I say this. So here's our main character. This is the person we are expected to be sympathetic towards for the entire movie.
Yes, you are about to objectively list the actions that he does.
Yes.
Yes.
So he hires a sex worker.
Mm-hmm.
He drinks to excess. Mm-hmm. He is an alcoholic.
Yes.
Let's not sugarcoat it.
Self-described.
He's a self-described alcoholic. He routinely hires sex workers.
Yes.
He does not work, has never worked a job in his entire life, has no concept of what it means to actually work for a living. He is completely fine with people stealing. Like, he encourages theft and is delighted by theft. He drives drunk.
That's the one unforgivable thing.
Like consistently.
Yeah. To be fair, he's usually chauffeured, but he does drive drunk a couple of times.
Yeah. He gets engaged to someone, and while that's happening is dating someone on the side who he does not tell about the engagement. These are all things that this character does.
Yes.
I fucking love Arthur.
Arthur's the best.
I love him so much.
Yes.
Why?
Because
why do I love him?
It's hard to describe, but he has a childlike enthusiasm for the world.
Mm-hmm.
He is full of joy.
He's like one of the nicest characters I think I've ever seen in anything.
Yes.
We were just rewatching it. So we watched this movie twice before doing this. I just wanted to kind of get back up to speed on it. And as we were watching it, so I'd read an article, I'll link to it in the show notes. I think I might have talked about it before, but I read an article that came out last year that was talking about kind of the rise of what the author of the article had dubbed nicecore. Mm-hmm. And they were talking specifically about things like Parks and Recreation, which is a show that we love, and Paddington 2, which I finally watched, and it's great.
Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Yeah, Brooklyn Nine-Nine. Like, these are shows and movies that are defined by just how good and decent all of the characters are towards each other.
Yeah.
And how positive they are.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean that every single character is positive and good. There has to be conflict in anything, but the central theme and conceit of the story is not how cruel people can be to each other. It's how kind and loving people can be to each other.
Yes.
Like, so Arthur's whole thing about not wanting to marry Susan, for example.
Yes.
Is that he doesn't love her.
Right.
That's his problem.
Right.
If he loved her, he'd be fine with it.
Right.
But he doesn't love her, so he doesn't want to do it. Like, it's weird for me to say that he has respect for Susan because he doesn't really respect her directly.
No, he thinks she's dumb.
Yeah. But no, does he?
I think he thinks she's kind of vapid.
I don't think he thinks she's vapid. I think he thinks that she has no sense of humor.
Yeah, I mean, I guess in his mind, that's sort of one and the same.
Yeah, like their few conversations together in the movie are kind of delightful because he's not talking down to her. He's talking like someone who has a really strong sense of humor talking to someone who doesn't.
Yeah.
But he's not talking down to her ever. Like there's that great moment where he says, like he calls her an asshole. And her response, her look is so adorable because she's not stupid. Yeah. Like she knows 100% what this relationship is.
Yeah.
And I I think she cares for him.
Yeah, she definitely does.
In
She's
her
not,
way.
Yeah, she's not just in it for the money. She has plenty of money.
Yeah.
Their family is extremely wealthy.
Totally.
Yeah.
So I think like they're just absolutely kind characters.
Yeah.
The other thing that I think is really important was a moment that you actually pointed out to me as something that you really liked. Do you know what I'm going to say?
I think I do.
Yeah. So at the beginning, near the beginning of the movie, he's talking with Martha, his grandmother, or is it when he's
his dad?
It's when he's talking to his dad. And basically his dad says, if you don't get married, we're gonna you'll be cut off. And what's Arthur's immediate reaction?
He says, "Oh, you mean from you and grandmother?
Like
I won't be allowed to see you anymore?"
And he says, no, the money.
And-
like Arthur loves the money.
Yeah.
But the immediate thing he wants is to be loved.
Yeah, like
he loves his family.
Yeah, like to be clear, he agrees to it because he does not want to be cut off from the money. Like
Totally.
as really almost anyone would, it is a great deal of money.
Mm-hmm.
And his life, he cannot support himself in the style to which he's become accustomed.
Right. But we learn a lot about his character from that moment because we do know that what he wants more than anything is to be loved.
Yes, he's extremely sincere.
Yeah.
I mean, even the very first scene, right?
Oh, sure, yeah.
This could be an incredibly unsympathetic scene because the very first scene in the movie is him in the back of a limo, very drunk, picking up a sex worker off the street corner, essentially. And there's these two women standing on the street corner, and one of them says, "What do you want?" And he says, "I want to spend the night with a stranger who loves me."
Yeah.
Which is sweet. I don't know if I can express, because again, it's one of those things where like objectively his actions look terrible, but because he's Dudley Moore and because he's so adorable and he invests everything he says with this sense of childlike wonder and joy, it's really sweet. So basically he picks up this woman, Gloria, and he even gives her friend money because he says, "You came in second." Right. Which is really sweet. And he takes her to the plaza, and she is not dressed for the plaza, to be clear.
Yeah, and like just to be also to be clear, like this is 1981 New York City.
Yes.
So this is before the like the Disneyfication of New York City.
And it was when the plaza still existed as a hotel.
Yeah, that's true.
The waiter greets him. He knows him. They get their usual table, and they run into Arthur's like aunt and uncle. And this scene could be so easily humiliating for Gloria. She is out of place. And also, if we're talking about class, like she's about 27 levels down from all of these people in their view, of course. Of course, every human being has the same worth. But like, as far as they're concerned, right, she should not be there associating with them. And he never embarrasses her. Not once. He embarrasses his aunt and uncle. Like, he walks her over to the table. She's fine. She says hi. And he says, "Oh, this is Princess Gloria." And she totally goes along with it. I think that's the thing that he really respects and responds to in someone to make him like them. Because Linda does the exact same thing, which is he essentially improvs with her and she like instantly goes along with it.
Totally.
And then we see actually later, we're going to talk about Linda in a second, but like later, like Linda is the one to launch into it, and Arthur's like, "Oh, okay, I guess we're doing this. Yes, and like they're very good together." But what I said to you while we were watching it is like this could so easily be a scene of comedy of embarrassment where she's out of place and his actions continue to indicate that she's out of place, and that doesn't happen. He does his best to make her comfortable,
right,
and takes her home, and like they clearly sleep together.
And like one thing that I think is just super important is like he does embarrass her a tiny bit because he's very loud and obnoxious, but it's very specifically the kind of way that anyone would be embarrassed by someone being loud and obnoxious in a restaurant,
right? And
like,
then he apologizes.
Yeah, and it has nothing to do with her,
right?
It's just him because he's a drunkard,
right?
Yeah,
right. And then they go home, and this is actually a good segue because this is where we meet Hobson for the first time.
Goodness.
So Hobson, played by John Gielgud. Sir John Gielgud. Excuse me. We must give him his full title.
Yes.
Is, again, one of the other reasons that this movie just works.
Yes.
Because, again, he is a pure delight. Can you tell the story that you told me about John Gielgud?
Yes, absolutely. And just to preface this, I will say, like anything, I read this on the internet, so take it with a grain of salt. But apparently there are stories from behind the scenes where The best thing I can compare it to is like Alec Guinness being in Star Wars. This is someone who came from a different world and is now in something that they were not 100% comfortable with and seem to handle it in very different ways.
Yeah.
Because everything I've ever heard about Alec Guinness in Star Wars is that he was a professional on set.
Yeah.
Like, it never sounded like he was anything less than a professional.
He wasn't like a jerk.
Right. But I think kind of famously did not respect that movie,
Yeah.
did not respect the writing, and certainly didn't speak kindly of it to a lot of people. But John Gielgud doesn't do movies like this.
No.
He doesn't do comedies like this. What can you tell me, how many things do you think he ever acted in that weren't written by William Shakespeare?
I mean, not that many.
Right. So now he's in this movie. By the way, two other actors that were considered for this role were Alec Guinness and David Niven.
Okay. I see the look they're going for.
Yep, I would have seen either of them.
Yeah.
I'm glad we got John Gielgud.
Me too.
But apparently while they were making the movie, he was constantly going to like Liza Minnelli and Dudley Moore, just going like, "Is this funny? Like, I don't know, and I want it to be funny. I want to do a good job." I'm paraphrasing a rumor, basically.
Yeah.
But like, apparently he just kept saying, "I really want to do a good job. Is this funny? I need your help.
Yeah.
Can you help me?"
But like not in the way that you would imagine someone like just thinking the script wasn't funny or not getting it. Like, he understood it was funny, but was worried about being able to support the script as it deserved, which I just think is very sweet because he's incredibly funny. Like, there was a line that he had that I like turned to. I was like, how could he not know that was funny? That was so funny. There's basically right after "I'd like to take a bath, I'll alert the media," Arthur goes off to take his bath, and Hobson says,
Perhaps you'd like me to come in there and wash your dick for you. You little shit.
It's such a good line.
"Little shit."
I think we should probably for ourselves right now just say no more quotes.
Yeah.
Because this is such a fucking quotable movie.
Yeah, it's so good.
The last time this happened to us, I think, was Airplane.
Yeah.
Where like we specifically said, like, let's not turn this into a quote fest.
Yeah, you're right.
But there's so many quotable lines in this movie.
Yeah.
It's crazy how funny it is.
Yeah. So Hobson is great, and like, talk about two human beings having chemistry. There is such great love between Dudley Moore and John Gielgud in this film.
Oh, yeah.
They love each other so much, which again, I feel like what we're trying to do right now is answer the question, why does this movie work?
Yes.
And so far we've come up with joy, humor, and chemistry.
Right.
Which are three huge things, all of which this movie has in droves.
Right. And I think, so I'll say one other thing this movie has, and I think we've already alluded to it, but I want to say this and then specifically direct it to something you just said, because you said like the chemistry between these two people, and I held up three fingers.
You did.
In front of you. The other thing this movie has is casting.
Yes.
This movie is cast perfectly.
Yes.
Because the third person that has a ridiculous amount of chemistry is Liza Minnelli.
Yes.
Like, the thing that I love about this is Liza Minnelli it's not one of these things where Arthur is the main character and all of the characters only interact with Arthur and they don't get to interact with each other. Hobson gets to interact with Linda and vice versa.
Yeah, like multiple times.
Yeah. And Liza Minnelli doesn't just have amazing chemistry with Dudley Moore, which she does. She also has amazing chemistry with John Gielgud.
Yeah.
There's basically the scene after Arthur has basically resigned himself to saying, like, no, I'm going to marry Susan. And Hobson has no respect for Linda, because Hobson is above all things a classist.
Well, and also the way they met was because she was shoplifting.
Right, exactly.
So he thinks she's a criminal.
Totally. But he also has a heart, and he goes to Linda and her dad, who we'll talk about.
Yeah, we're going to talk about her dad in a second.
He goes to Linda and he says, look, if you want Arthur, you're going to have to work for him. And I love him. I approve of you. You should go for this.
Yes.
Never saying those things at all.
Yes.
And that scene between the two of them is one of the best scenes in the whole movie.
Yeah.
And it doesn't involve Dudley Moore at all.
Yeah.
I think it's worth mentioning that John Gielgud won Best Supporting Actor for this at the Oscars that next year.
Yeah.
I just think that's worth mentioning.
Well, yeah. And I mean, the other thing about that scene, like, not for nothing, but we do find out that at that time he knows he's dying and is essentially bequeathing Arthur to her. She says, you take really good care of him. And he says, yes, and it's a job I recommend. Yeah. Like, he knows that he can't do this forever.
Arthur's such a pure character.
Yeah, he's so sweet.
He's such a good character.
He's so sweet. He's like a dog. Like, he's like just like a happy golden retriever that drinks too much.
Well, you know how people always say, like, we don't deserve dogs?
Yeah.
I feel like that's the refrain.
Yeah.
We don't deserve Arthur.
He's so precious.
Like, I know I mentioned Paddington before, but, like, Paddington's just like that.
Yeah.
People love these these Paddington movies because of Paddington, because he
Yeah.
is such a good and decent character.
Yeah.
And Arthur's like that.
But I mean, the thing about Arthur is like, because this is Arthur and not a children's movie, he's also deeply flawed.
Oh, yeah.
But like in a way that we don't care about because he's so sweet.
Yeah.
So we talked about the three main characters. Do you want to get into a couple of the supporting characters?
I think we absolutely should.
Okay.
So I think we should, like, we alluded to him. Let's talk about Ralph.
Yes.
Let's talk about Ralph Marola, Linda's dad.
Oh my God.
So he is played by Barney Martin. Just so everyone understands the context, this is Seinfeld's dad.
Yeah.
Like, if you've ever watched Seinfeld, Jerry's dad is also Linda's dad. I guess they played husband and wife on a stage production of Chicago.
Who did?
Barney Martin and Liza Minnelli.
Oh, that's crazy.
I was reading it on the again. It's on the internet, so who knows?
Who knows?
Let me ask you. I want to ask you a very specific question. If you were to make a list of the 20 funniest moments of this movie, what percentage of them would be directly related to Barney Martin as Ralph Marola?
I mean, there would be two in the top 5, and essentially both of them involve him bursting into tears.
He's amazing. He's not even in that many scenes.
He's just so in touch with his emotions.
Oh, yeah. I love this character so much. And he has such a wonderful relationship with Linda.
Yeah.
Like, he really wants what's best for her, but he also really wants her to marry someone who's really, really, really wealthy.
Yes. Yeah. So we have a couple more supporting characters. One is Arthur's grandmother, Martha.
I fucking love Martha.
Who he has a great relationship with.
Totally.
And
She's a battle axe. Is that the appropriate use of that term?
I think so.
She's so good.
And she's basically just like walking around the entire movie and essentially like a Victorian mourning dress. Like she's just all in black, like Queen Victoria herself. And she's just a tiny, tiny British lady.
Mm-hmm.
And she is the one that saves Arthur's life at the end when he's being threatened by Bert Johnson with a knife because she hits him.
Mm-hmm.
Hits Bert Johnson.
Yeah.
Saves Arthur's life.
Yeah, and basically says, "Don't fuck with me."
She literally says, "Don't fuck with me."
Well, she literally says, "Don't screw with me."
Oh, okay. I thought she said, "Don't fuck with me."
Yeah.
And
I don't think the F-bomb is dropped in this movie.
No, I don't think so. There's a couple shits.
This is like 1981 PG.
Yeah.
Where you can have like sex workers and
sex.
It's sex workers and sex and lots of shits.
Yes.
And some foul language
but no F-bombs.
Yeah.
No F-bombs, please.
I don't think there's any in here.
And she's just wonderful and she saves the day and we know that she cares deeply for Arthur. Again, like everyone is just full of joy in this movie.
Yeah, I love their relationship. They have a scene early on in the movie where she asks him, like, she's so delighted to ask, but what's it like to be promiscuous? And his reaction is just like, it's pretty great.
It's great.
It's great. Like, they don't have a relationship. They don't have a traditional, like, grandson and grandmother relationship.
No.
And it makes it really refreshing.
She's just a feisty old lady.
Yeah. But then there's another woman in his life, and we've mentioned her, and that's Susan.
Yes.
So Susan Johnson. I love Susan Johnson.
Do you?
I think she is an amazing character. Like, you know, you talk about like strong characters. She knows exactly what she wants. She manages to really thread the needle in terms of being part of the conflict. Like, I don't want to call her an antagonist because she's not an antagonist.
Not an antagonist.
She is like a central part of the central conflict.
Yeah.
And she is not what he wants. And she is, like, as an audience, you're looking at her as a thing that's standing in the way of Arthur, this character you love, being happy. But I certainly don't leave the movie disliking Susan.
No, I mean, the thing about Susan is she is essentially in direct contrast to Linda. And so when you see the two of them, it's like, oh, no, I get it. I understand. He just doesn't like this girl. He likes this other one.
Right.
There are reasons for it. Not because she's horrible, just because she's not right for him.
Right.
Like, that's the whole thing throughout the movie. He doesn't say she's awful. She's not trying to undermine him. I feel like in a lesser movie, there would be a plot where we knew that Susan was trying to marry him for some, like, ill-gotten gain or some like nefarious reason,
or just for the money,
or truly just for the money.
Like, again, a lesser movie would just say she was in it for the money,
right? But she likes him and she wants a weak man. You
right.
know? Like, that's what she wants. She knows he's weak and she's fine with it,
totally,
because she wants to be in charge.
Mm-hmm. And
good for her, but they're not right for each other.
Right.
Yes.
There is one last person that I think we should talk about.
Okay.
We mentioned Bitterman before.
Yes.
How great is Bitterman.
We love Bitterman.
So this is Ted Ross, who also, like, the only other thing I really know him from specifically is he played the lion in The Wiz. So it was nice to see his face.
Yeah, that's great.
Although I haven't seen The Wiz in a really long time.
I don't think I've ever seen The Wiz.
Oh, really? Oh, it's super good.
Yeah, well, maybe
Yeah,
we'll do it someday for Wizard of Oz episode.
But now I'm trying to think about it, and I wonder if they do the thing where, like, you see all of the actors without their makeup on.
I don't know.
I can't remember if Nipsey Russell is not just the Tin Man in it. Anyway, Ted Ross is great.
This is a digression.
Bitterman, shut up. You're a digression.
Your butt's a digression.
Bitterman is great. Why is Bitterman great?
Just once again, like, I feel like this is like a broken record.
Yep.
He is so sweet.
Yep.
And loves Arthur.
Yeah, he really
and
does
also
love him.
loves Hobson dearly.
Yeah. Like, he loves Hobson. He loves working for Arthur.
Yeah.
And he's really protective of Arthur, too.
Yeah.
But he's also really realistic about Arthur. Like, at the beginning of the movie, the sex worker that Arthur doesn't hire, like, Bitterman gets out to give her some money, and she just says, like, I recognize that guy. Is there something wrong with him? And Bitterman's reaction is just, yes. Like, he's not unrealistic about who Arthur is as a person, but he does love him so much.
Yeah, and the scene where he drives Linda home and she's like, I want to impress my neighbors because they're in like the Rolls Royce. And he's like, all right, well, if you want the full, he kind of rolls his eyes, but he's like, if you want the full chauffeur treatment, I will do that for you.
I disagree with you. He doesn't roll his eyes.
No, when he says Mrs. What's-her-name deserves the full treatment, he totally rolls his eyes.
I don't think so.
Oh, okay.
I respectfully disagree.
I don't think he's rolling his eyes at Linda. I think he's rolling his eyes at the situation.
Yes. Okay,
Yes.
I will agree to that.
Yeah.
But he's like totally on board.
Oh, yeah.
And I think this is another great example where this movie is really willing to have Arthur not be the center of every single scene.
Yeah.
We actually see Linda and Bitterman together, which is great.
Yeah. I think one of the things this movie does really well. So again, the things that we have identified as what makes this movie great.
Mm-hmm.
Joy, chemistry,
Yeah.
humor,
Mm-hmm.
casting.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say the fifth one is pace.
Oh, yes.
For sure. This is a movie that is really not afraid to take its time.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the funniest scenes in the whole movie is the stupidest, most simple thing. Arthur has shown up at Linda's house. It's 3:00 in the morning. He's drunk. He stumbles in. He knocks over like a bunch of stuff that's on their counter. And this like plastic box hits the ground and breaks. And the camera just shows him as he tries to put it back together. And he's not frantically trying to put it back together. He's not talking about how he's trying to put it back together.
It's very quiet.
It's very quiet. No one says anything.
Mhm.
Everyone is just standing there watching him, letting him take his time, putting the thing back together. And then there is this amazing, I'm sorry we're quoting lines, but there's this amazing payoff line because finally, after what feels like hours of pure silence, he just hands it back to her and says,
This is a goner.
and I just think that's such a beautiful example of a director that wasn't afraid to take their time.
Oh, I'm so glad you brought up the director.
Yeah.
Because I really want to talk about the director.
Let's do it.
So I want to talk about Steve Gordon. It is amazing to me how little we have to talk about. So here's a few things about Steve Gordon. Steve Gordon, really, he got to start in TV.
Okay.
Worked in TV a lot. His only involvement in film was he co-wrote one movie like 2 years before this. He wrote and directed this movie.
Okay.
And he died the next year.
Oh my God.
Yeah, he had a heart attack the next year.
Oh my God.
He died at 44. So we don't have a ton to go on. Like, this is his only movie he's ever directed.
What a beautiful legacy.
Right?
I'm literally crying.
Like, okay, so here's the thing. This is the best word I think I can use to describe what my impression is of him as a director based on one movie.
Okay.
Confidence.
Yeah.
Like,
yes.
That's what it really comes down to. And it really is so impressive to me because I think confidence in a director, I mean, you talked before about how shots don't cut for a while and we have such long parts of silence. I feel like a director who is not confident will usually try to be over the top and will usually have lots of cuts, lots of music, lots of sound. They want to throw a lot at the audience because they are worried that if the pace is not high enough, the audience will get bored.
Yeah.
And they don't want to bore the audience. But this is a movie where if you didn't have, like, to be clear, if you didn't have Dudley Moore and John Gielgud and Liza Minnelli in the lead parts, this might be a boring movie. But because it has those people, it's not boring.
Yeah, and the amount of just sort of air and breath and letting the actors just take their time to do things reminds me almost of a Christopher Guest movie. And it made me think, it made me wonder how much of this might have been improvised.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I have no idea.
Yeah, no, so much of what I've seen is that I can't say for certain. My impression is there is a lot of improvisation in this movie.
My impression is of that just from watching it.
I mean, just from what I know of Dudley Moore.
Yeah.
And even Liza Minnelli.
Yeah.
Like, I think they're actors who are very comfortable with improvisation. And it might not even be the kind of improvisation where they, like, didn't know what the scene was when they walked into it.
No, but just little things.
Yeah, like, in terms of... I bet there was a lot of improvisation in terms of pace. Like, let me give an example that is purely hypothetical.
Yeah.
When Arthur is putting that plastic box back together... That may not have been in the script as Arthur spends fully a minute and a half trying to put it together before he says this is a goner. It may just have been as simple as Arthur tries to put it back together, hands it back to Susan, and says this is a goner. But
To Linda.
That's sorry, yeah, not Susan. But you have Dudley Moore, who's someone who's really good at improvising. I bet a lot of that came out there.
That was my suspicion just watching with that in mind.
Yeah, we don't know because we can't ask him.
We can't know.
We can't ask
Any of them. Oh, God. It's so sad. Everyone's dead except Liza.
Yeah, we could ask Liza.
We can ask Liza.
If anyone knows Liza, let her know. We have some
God,
questions.
Everyone's gone too young.
About
Except
this.
John Gielgud. He was literally playing a man who was like old enough to be dying, and then he lived another 20 years.
Right. He and Dudley Moore died like 2 years apart.
Ugh, I don't want to think about it. All right.
So there's only one more thing I wanted to mention really quickly before we move on. I think you have one more thing as well.
I just had one more thing.
Yeah. My one thing, I just want to get back to how impressive it is that this movie got made.
Yeah.
Because there's just some things about it. It seems like we're not the only people saying, or certainly historically, why does this movie work? Like, I think even at the time they didn't know that it would work.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, here's some actors who were considered for the role of Arthur.
Okay.
Because Arthur was originally envisioned to be American.
Right.
Al Pacino.
Ooh.
And remember, this is 1981.
I know, but ooh.
Yeah. Jack Nicholson.
Oh.
Like, I kind of see that.
But he's not funny.
Well, Richard Dreyfuss.
Okay.
Like-
You're getting closer.
Like, I can see it. Jimmy Caan.
Oh.
And apparently John Belushi was also rumored
I mean,
to
that
be
would
in
have
it.
taken it in a really different direction.
Right? But, like, I think that's proof that they didn't quite know what they wanted.
Yeah.
Because that's not... All these actors, yeah, they're big, but, like, Richard Dreyfuss and Al Pacino are not similar.
John Belushi and Al Pacino are not similar.
Like, they could have gone in so many different directions.
Yeah.
I already mentioned before that Hobson was almost Alec Guinness or David Niven.
Yeah.
Linda was going to be would have been Deborah Winger, but she dropped out.
I mean, that makes sense for the time.
I guess so, but like Deborah Winger and Liza Minnelli are not the same.
They're not the same.
They're very, very different. Paramount originally had the movie. They dropped it, and then it went to Orion. And apparently they went through 6 different ad campaigns before they found one that they could use to sell the movie.
Oh, my God.
Like, I legitimately believe, like, no one knew what to do with this thing.
Yeah.
And we're just so lucky that we have it because
Yeah.
it's such a beautiful movie.
Yeah. I mean, the other thing that I just wanted to briefly mention is it has one of the best theme songs
Oh, it's so good.
ever.
Oh, it's so good.
So good.
Literally played at a friend's wedding.
Yeah, for sure it was. Written by Peter Allen, who, as we all know, was at one time Mr. Liza Minnelli.
What you say written by Peter Allen, what was his contribution to
Well,
the song?
you just told me this. I assumed he wrote the whole song. And the
No.
reason that I assume that is because I've seen the musical The Boy from Oz, which is about Peter Allen.
Yeah.
But you pointed out that he literally only wrote like the chorus.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. Apparently he wrote it in a plane because the chorus is
I mean, you should just play.
moon's up there and the city's down there. Here we go. But no, the song was also co-written by Christopher Cross, who performed it, and Burt Bacharach.
Yeah.
And apparently they all said to Peter Allen, like, no, you're going to get co-writing credit on this. And he said, but I just wrote one line. And they said, no, but
it was a good line.
it's a really good line and we need it. And they won the Oscar for
great.
Best Song.
It's great.
Yeah.
Everything's great.
It's a great song.
Yes.
And it makes it into the remake.
Mhm.
The remake uses it
Yeah.
like multiple times.
Yeah. Not the words, just the tune.
No, the words.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, during the end credits, the whole end credits
Oh, the
sequence.
end credits. Okay.
Yeah,
That's fair enough. Yeah. Well, you mentioned the remake.
Yes.
Which seems like a really good bridge.
I'm just trying to think if I have anything else to say about this movie. Like, if you haven't seen it, based on this conversation, I know we did lines and we did readings and we played lines and we spoiled the plot, but oh my God, see it if you haven't seen it.
It's delight.
It's so
It's
good.
a delight.
Yes, they remade it.
But what not everybody knows is that they remade it twice.
What?
They did.
Wait a second. So we're not just going to skip straight to Russell Brand?
No, we're going to skip forward only 3 years.
Oh, goodness.
To another movie.
Oh, okay.
That was not made in this country.
No?
No.
So Britain, right?
Nope. A little further south.
Okay, gotcha.
So in 1984, this movie was, I'm not going to say remade, I'm going to say adapted
Sure.
into a Bollywood film called Sharabi, which we were very proud to discover just through context clues means drunkard or alcoholic.
Right.
Because they say it in the movie many, many times.
Yeah, and Sharab is alcohol.
Sharab is alcohol.
So was this just some minor Bollywood movie?
No.
That didn't involve that was just a minor movie?
No. So there is an actor who we were trying to figure out who the Hollywood equivalent would be. And I think the answer is truly there is no equivalent.
Yeah.
This man is a superstar of a magnitude that we do not have because people specialize more in types of roles. But this is someone who has done literally everything, including being the host of the Indian version of Who Wants to Be a Millionaire.
I mean, he does everything in this movie.
Yes. He sings, he dances, he cries, he fights, he bleeds, he drinks a lot. If you know Bollywood, you will recognize his name, Amitabh Bachchan, who is great.
Okay, so a couple of just things about this movie.
Yes.
So yes, it was made in 1984. It was directed by Prakash Mehra, who directed many movies with Amitabh Bachchan.
Yes.
Just to be clear.
This was his 6th in a row, I believe.
Yeah, I think so. One thing that I found, so the Wikipedia page for Sharabi is amazing because it is clear, it doesn't seem like there's a lot of oversight on the language in it because I feel like I'm really used to Wikipedia pages. Basically, all of the fluff has been kind of edited out.
Right.
It's just the facts, ma'am.
Right.
That kind of thing. Here is just 2 sentences from the not even a quote, just the Wikipedia page for Sharabi. Sharabi is one of the greatest performances ever by Amitabh Bachchan. His emotional and comical performance as an alcoholic is considered to have raised the bar for future generations of actors portraying alcoholics. That's the Wikipedia page.
That seems subjective.
It's super subjective.
But I think that just the fact that hasn't been edited out just speaks to this man's level of stardom.
Yeah.
That anyone that's familiar with his career just reads that and goes, yeah, that's about right.
I think the best thing to do, and so let's get something out of the way right now. We do not have a ton of context. We lack a basic understanding of Bollywood to really talk about Amitabh Bachchan and this movie.
Yeah, we are absolutely unequipped to do any of our usual sort of criticism.
Yes.
Because we admittedly know very little about Bollywood, so we don't have the cultural context to talk about how this movie fits into the enormous scope of Bollywood movies.
All we can do is observe and report.
Yes.
That is all we can do.
Well, essentially, we're going to report the questions that we had.
Yes.
And the things that interested us.
Right. But one question that I have.
Yeah.
And we didn't prepare all these questions ahead of time.
No. And I do want to say, just before we launch into that right off the bat, we loved watching this movie.
Super fun.
It was awesome. You can find it for free online with English subtitles.
Yes.
And that was how we watched it.
Mm-hmm. Because it's not available. We would have paid for it.
Yeah, you can't get it.
Yeah.
In this country.
So I have a question.
Yes.
And it goes with something we were just saying. Amitabh Bachchan.
Yes.
We were trying to come up with the Western version of Amitabh Bachchan.
Yeah.
And I remember being so proud of myself when I was like, oh, he's Hugh Jackman. He's Hugh Jackman because he does action and comedy and singing and dancing. And you had, I think, a really, you brought me back down to earth for a second with a really good observation.
Well, I said, but they all sing and dance. All Bollywood movies have singing and dancing.
Like, it was something I wasn't thinking about.
Yeah.
That, like, that's something you have to take off the table for a second because that's just assumed.
Yeah.
So if there is a Western actor who does those things, that doesn't mean that there's, like, a one-to-one for them.
Yeah. Because I said, like, Tom Hanks. But if he's considered, I don't think Tom Hanks is considered the greatest actor of all time. And Amitabh Bachchan definitely is.
Like, do you think Marlon Brando or something like that?
I don't know. I think there's no equivalent. I think he's such a superstar that there's no equivalent.
Like, maybe I'm doing this backwards. Maybe we should be thinking of, like, God, who in Western cinema could possibly, like, who's our Amitabh Bachchan?
I don't think we have one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I've been thinking of, like, who is he who's he India's version of?
Yeah. But he is no one's version of anything. He is bigger than anyone. If
No,
anything,
totally.
Anyone in Hollywood is our version of him.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That is how enormously influential this person is. So anyway, I just want to be clear that we understand that much at least about the cultural context of this particular movie.
Mm-hmm.
So we just had questions when we watched it. I don't think we're going to spend too much time on it, but like, here are some things that we found fascinating that I think are not just this movie, but just Bollywood in general.
Mm-hmm.
We were really fascinated by sort of the use of English and like, because people speak English sometimes and like as part of some sentences, and we didn't. The thing we didn't know was whether that is how people in India speak, because most people, because of colonialization, most people in India do speak English, as is my understanding. But I didn't know if switching back and forth between Hindi and English is a movie thing or like just a cultural thing and that's how people talk.
Yeah, I
like,
don't know.
I have no idea.
Don't know.
And the other really big thing that this movie gets into that we did not feel equipped to talk about was class.
Right.
Because Arthur...
Hang on. I'm so sorry. I'm going to stop you for a second. I feel like we should backtrack for a moment.
Yeah.
So we keep talking about things that have nothing to do with Arthur.
Yeah.
We sat down to watch this movie, not knowing anything about it. And we agreed at the beginning, if we watch this and we get half an hour into it and we go like, look, here's the deal. We know it's like a loose adaptation of Arthur, but if we can't see Arthur in it, we're not going to finish it.
Yeah, because first of all, it's 3 hours long.
Yeah.
It's in a language we don't speak.
Right.
It was Arthur. It was Arthur.
It really was. Like, through 3 hours, we could absolutely see Arthur in there from beginning to end.
Yeah.
With a million things piled on top of it.
Yeah. Well, interestingly, Arthur is a movie about class. Like, the Dudley Moore movie Arthur is about class.
Right.
Which is a little bit unusual because we don't have a structured class system. You know, we do, but not officially in the U.S., but it is absolutely about marrying essentially outside of your class and like doing things that your class, quote unquote, of people don't do.
Yeah, and I guess so here's a question that I have. So in Western movies, class is brought up constantly, but it's always this thing where, it is completely acceptable from an audience standpoint to watch characters like fall in love regardless of caste.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's a thing we want.
Yes.
We want to see that happen constantly. And one thing that I don't know about Indian cinema is the class system so strong that that's not actually something that all audiences want.
Yeah.
Like,
because they do end up together at the end.
They do. But
for a minute we thought they weren't going to.
Yeah, because like she's dead for like a little bit and then she's not dead. It's so
and he's
dramatic.
dying and then he's fine.
This movie's so like violent. People die.
We loved it.
Oh, it's great.
Yeah.
It's super, super fun. But like, that's a thing I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either. Yeah, I have no idea. And then the other thing that was super interesting, which was an element in Arthur that they not only took out, but like actively spoke against in this movie, is he is an alcoholic.
Yes.
For sure. That is the title of the movie. But he is not promiscuous. Like, he is against that.
Mm-hmm.
He is pious. Like,
totally.
He talks about his relationship with God a lot. Like, he is, and again, I wonder if that's like, because we talk about like, what does Arthur have to do to make him a relatable and lovable character? And I wonder if in that cultural context at that time, someone that slept around couldn't be a lovable, redeemable character.
Yeah, I have a question about that.
Yeah, that's a question I have. I don't know the answer.
That's definitely a question that I have.
Yeah,
though.
because
Like,
it was super interesting.
one of the things about Arthur that's so great is that he's constantly doing things that people don't do. His behavior is very, very questionable.
Yeah.
Whereas Vicky's character, so he's not Arthur in this one,
He's
obviously.
Vicky.
He's Vicky Kapoor.
Yeah.
Vicky's character, he is so good and so noble and so talented and so able-bodied.
Yeah.
Like, so there's a scene that happens about halfway through the movie where he goes to find Mina, who is Linda in this movie.
Yes.
She's a dancer and a singer.
Yes.
He goes to find her, and when he goes to her neighborhood, like this scene exists in the original where Arthur goes into her neighborhood to try to find her, and he just starts knocking on doors and has amazing interactions with her neighbors.
Mm-hmm.
In this one, he also goes to her neighborhood. There is a musical number, which is different than
Yeah.
Arthur.
Mm-hmm.
And he is immediately held up by 4 ruffians
Yes.
who steal everything from him. And then he proceeds to go find her and have a musical number and everything. And then he ends up finding them in a bar later. And what does he do to them?
He basically says, hey, I have a funny story to tell you. I met these 4 guys. They were such jerks. Let me tell you about all the things they did.
Not
And-
like you.
Not like you.
You guys are great.
You guys are great, but let me tell you about what I would do if I found them. And then proceeds to narrate how he would beat them up while beating them up.
Yes. He beats the shit out
Yeah.
of them. He's amazing.
He's so good.
He's tall and handsome and amazing and like everything about him. He is such objectively a much better person than Arthur Bach.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. I believe so.
But still, like, is that so? I guess what I'm wondering is within the context of personalities within Bollywood, would people who are watching Bollywood look at him the same way that we look at Dudley Moore in Arthur?
Yeah.
Like, would they say, oh, you think he's this great person? Of course he's not this great person. He's an alcoholic and he's irresponsible. And like, I would say, yeah, but he's so amazing in every other way. And they
Right.
go, yeah, but everyone is. That's, of course he should be.
Right.
He's a good person. Of course he should be.
Right.
Like, I wonder.
Yeah, we don't know. Sidebar, the actress who plays Meena, her name is Jaya Prada.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what happened to her?
I have some guesses, but please go on.
Just fascinating. So she was a really big time star at the time, but she quit acting in the 90s to go into politics and has been essentially like a senator for 20 years.
Cool.
Which is really neat.
It's really cool.
I think that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's good in this movie, too.
Yeah, she's good.
One person that I think is important to mention is Om Prakash, who plays Munshi Pulchand,
Okay.
who is the accountant.
Yeah.
So this is, okay, super, super quick. We saw this with English subtitles.
Yeah.
Clearly not an amazing translation.
Yeah.
So Hobson, this is Hobson, basically.
Yeah, and they just refer to him as accountant.
The entire time.
Yeah, like as
So
his name.
Here's another question I have. Is there a better translation for that?
Right.
Maybe there is. I don't know. Hi, everybody. I'm just dropping in for a second to let you know that between recording this episode and releasing this episode, we found out a little bit more about this translation. So it turns out that the thing that everyone is saying to refer to the accountant character that is translated as accountant is the word Munshi, which is not a word, it's a name, it's just the character's first name. Everyone's just calling him by his first name, and the translation we have changes it to accountant. It still doesn't make sense. I still love this movie just as much as I did when I saw it. This is great. Anyway, back to the show. How would you say his character? So we already said how Vicky differs from Arthur. How does accountant differ from Hobson?
I would say he more actively hates the fact that Vicky is an alcoholic.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
Like, and he also really hates Vicky's father.
Yes.
Like a lot.
Yeah.
The neglect of the father is much more explicit. Like he has neglected his son, and that is the reason why his son has not turned out well.
There's a crazy amount of drama between Vicky and his father.
Yeah,
in this.
yeah. And then basically, accountant sacrifices himself for Vicky at the end, so rather than dying of natural causes.
Yeah, like his death is the thing that proves to Vicky that he shouldn't be an alcoholic.
Yes.
But does Vicky stop drinking after
he
that?
does stop drinking, yeah.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah, although the movie's almost over at that point.
Right.
Yeah.
So we have no proof.
Yeah, we have no proof.
So I only have a couple other things.
Yeah.
So there is a character that is added And the character is added specifically, again, to show how good and decent Vicky is as a person.
Yeah.
Which is something that's in Arthur. Like, it's in both the versions of Arthur that we saw, that he's someone who's very generous with his money.
Yes.
Because he doesn't place a lot of value on the money.
Right.
He knows what it can mean for other people, so he's very generous with it. So we have the character of Anwar, who is Vicky's other love interest.
I mean, essentially, like, we see them as children, and Anwar's mother died, and Vicky offered to pay for his education.
He's like a slightly older child. Like, Vicky's an older child.
Yeah, but, like, he must never know. I think something got lost in translation, to be honest with you, in Anwar's story, because I did not understand what was going on there.
Well, that's the thing. I actually think I totally understood what was going on, but it didn't hit me the way I think it was supposed to.
Gotcha.
But yeah, Vicky pays for Anwar's whole education, and Anwar is now a police officer and doesn't know who paid for everything.
Right.
And one of the big reveals at the end of the movie is he finds that Vicky did it. He already loved Vicky.
He loved him so much.
He looks up to him and he respects him and he values him and he thinks he's just a great person. Everyone loves Vicky.
Yeah.
Everyone loves him so much, but it's a little different than the love everyone has for Arthur in the original, because this is so much more like, I feel like in Arthur, everyone looks at him and goes, he's ours.
Yeah.
He's everyone's little brother.
Yeah.
We care about this guy and we should take care of this guy because he needs us.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Whereas Vicky in Sharabi, everyone loves him because he's up on high, being generous to everybody.
Yeah, he's basically just like, if you need anything, you go to him. He will give you money for whatever you need, no questions asked.
Like, he's like the Godfather if everyone also really liked the Godfather.
And didn't ask for anything in return.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
There's a whole thing with mustaches. Anyway.
The mustache joke is like transcends culture. The mustache joke is amazing.
It's very funny.
It's indescribable though, but if you watch this, you will know what we're talking about.
Yeah. Okay, one other note that I have before we get to my last thing is at one point in the movie, it's Vicky's birthday. What song do they sing to him?
Why they sing Happy Birthday, of course.
How weird is it to actually hear the Happy Birthday song in a movie?
Yeah, it is weird because I guess they didn't care about the American copyright.
And why should they?
They shouldn't.
Like, I don't even think it's about caring. They're just not held to it.
No, they're not held to it. And also, apparently that the whole thing is fake. Like, it isn't copyrighted and people could have been using it this whole time.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. But it was still really weird to hear that in
It
a
was
movie.
really weird.
Here's my final thing about this movie. There is, like, a piece of Western media that I compare this movie to, and a lot of this comes from my lack of knowledge of Bollywood.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know a ton about it. I'm learning more about it as time goes on, but there is one thing I'm really curious about. We have this idea of a variety show.
Right.
Right? And a variety show has lots of things going on in it. It's got interviews and it has music in it. And some variety shows in other cultures involve like drama and skits and all kinds of different things. I am super curious to know, on the spectrum of like pure variety show and straight ahead single story drama, where does Bollywood fall? Because this movie, it's 3 hours long. And the reason it's 3 hours long is because it's like 20 different movies all combined into one.
Yeah, it's got songs and fighting.
Right? Like, and it's not just that Vicky is the main character. Like, yeah, he's pulling the whole thing together, but the tone of all the scenes is totally different in a way that I don't think we have in Western cinema.
Yeah, and I think what you have identified based on my extremely limited knowledge of Bollywood movies, which is I think I've seen one more than you have, which is none. That seems like that's pretty normal.
Like, this movie has everything. And I can absolutely, if someone tells me like, yeah, what's going on is like, yeah, the way they were looking at it was, if people were going to the theater for 3 hours, they want all kinds of different forms of entertainment for 3 hours. They don't want just one thing for 3 hours. Who wants that?
Yeah.
So we're going to give them everything. And this is the scene where Vicky's really good at fighting and is Jackie Chan.
Yeah.
Like, he's everybody. And there aren't that many songs in it. There's like, what, 8 songs in it? When they happen, they are amazing.
Yes.
It's such a weird movie.
Yeah. We really liked it. We really enjoyed it.
It was really fun.
Yeah.
And it's Arthur.
Yeah, for sure.
As weird as that is, as the fact, like, it is violent and there are guns and people actually die and people fake die.
It's much more dramatic than Arthur.
So much more dramatic.
Yeah, there is conflict in this movie.
But it is Arthur. And you know what else is also Arthur?
I mean, I've got a pretty good idea.
What's your idea?
Perhaps the 2011 remake starring Russell Brand
Called Arthur.
called Arthur.
Right. Okay. So this is more of a straight ahead remake.
Yeah.
So this came out in 2011, as you say. I just want to give some kind of background on this a little bit. It's not like this is one of those things where like people were trying to make this movie for years and it has this storied thing. It just seems like the right people decided they wanted to remake it and they remade it.
Yeah.
And it was not like some crazy dramatic thing.
Yeah.
So it was directed by Jason Weiner. Now, Jason Weiner has a couple things in common with Steve Gordon.
Okay. Is he dead?
No, he's not. In fact, he is alive. That is one of my notes. One of my notes is he is alive.
Good. I'm glad that he's alive. I don't want anyone to be dead.
He came from TV.
Okay.
That's the big thing. In fact, I thought that Arthur was not only his first and only movie. It's his first movie. I think he has another movie that's coming out soon. But it's not like he's come from film. He came from TV. He's one of the co-executive producers of Modern Family.
Oh, okay.
And he's like won Emmys for Modern Family and directed like 20 episodes of that. So TV is where he is.
Neat.
Kind of like Steve Gordon. It was written by Peter Bainham. Unlike Steve Gordon wrote and directed. This was written by someone else. Peter Bainham has a really, like, here are two people that he has done a lot of work with. Steve Coogan and Sacha Baron Cohen.
Okay.
So,
all right. Like comedies.
And specifically like British,
yeah.
which I think is important.
For sure.
That's one, like, I do think that voice is still in the movie.
Yeah.
But he like co-wrote a lot of Alan Partridge.
Okay.
And co-wrote Borat.
Okay.
Which was nominated for an Academy Award.
I believe you.
And Bruno. He also wrote Arthur Christmas, which came out the same year as Arthur.
Okay.
So that's fun to have on your resume.
Neat.
And Hotel Transylvania. Here's some people that we have in it. So, like, the biggest one is Russell Brand.
Yeah.
As Arthur.
Excuse me. The biggest star in this movie is Helen Mirren.
I think the biggest one to talk about is the main character, Arthur, the titular character.
If you must.
But yes, you're right. Helen Mirren is in it. So Helen Mirren must play Martha, right?
No.
No? Who does she play?
Hobson.
Hobson. Wait, what?
They made Hobson a lady.
We'll get into all the people as we talk about it, but I wanted to get some of that information out of the way. I just want to say we both had different reactions to this movie.
Clearly.
Not wildly different.
No.
And just as a quick example of our different reactions to this, in a couple of words, how do you feel about this movie?
I did not like this movie.
Okay. And I kind of liked this movie. Kind of, but didn't.
Gotcha.
Like, you actually are so much nicer about it than I thought you were going to be, because you have been telling me multiple times how much you hated this movie.
I mean, you wanted me to stretch it out, so I made it a full sentence.
Gotcha. In one word, how did you feel about this movie?
Bad.
Yeah, right? I think the way I think I'm a little different is I think we probably agree about the vast majority of things that make this movie unsuccessful.
Yeah. I think this is the classic 55-45 thing.
Totally.
Like if the line for liking it is 50%, we're closer together than you might imagine.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So let's walk through this movie a little bit.
Yeah.
Right off the bat, I have something to say about this movie.
Okay.
And this is literally my first note for this whole thing.
Okay.
This is poorly constructed.
Yeah. The pacing and tone, they never figured it out.
It never works.
No.
This is like a horribly put together movie.
Yeah.
And I don't want to necessarily, I feel a little mean because this is like someone's first movie.
Yeah.
So I don't want to say like, why didn't they do a better job? Because I don't know that I would have done a better job.
No, but they had such a good movie for a template.
Yeah.
Like it's a remake. How does that work? Like unless what you're trying to do is actively go against every choice that the director of the original made, so you can put your own stamp on
differentiate
it,
yourself,
and yeah, like not seem like you're copying, which it almost kind of seems like that is what he's trying to do. Now that I say that, I think that might be the case.
Yeah, I wouldn't blame them for that. The problem is it doesn't work.
It doesn't work.
Like at the end of the day, this movie does not work.
Yeah.
I think it is absolutely unsuccessful. I still kind of liked it.
Yeah.
But it's just really, really poorly put together. And like here's some examples of the ways that it's really poorly put together. You mentioned the pace.
Yeah.
The pace is so fast.
Yeah.
It cuts constantly. Jokes are never given the space to land appropriately, and I think the pace undercuts the humor, which I think is like the cardinal sin of a comedy.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
The editing is terrible.
No, for sure. I agree with you. I mean, I think that's a huge problem, and that's a problem that is consistent.
Yep.
I'd like to talk about the tone for a second.
Yes, please.
And really specifically the main character, Arthur.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Because let's just jump right into it, because we spent a long time talking about how Dudley Moore made a potentially unlikable character completely likable and adorable.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're trying to do the same thing.
I don't think they're totally unsuccessful.
I think they're somewhat unsuccessful because this is kind of what I wrote down. So one of the things about Arthur in 1981 is he's not only is he childlike in sort of his sense of joy and wonder, but he enjoys childish things.
Yes.
He likes model trains and toys and playing cowboys, and all of these sort of things from childhood are what brings him joy. So they do the same thing in 2011, where he's got like a big like model of the solar system on his over his bed, and he likes playing with, you know, toys and things.
He buys the Batmobile.
He buys,
that's the first scene
of
the movie.
He likes buying cars from movies.
Also, he buys the Batman Forever Batmobile, which I think is lame. But anyway,
I'm sorry. So it's like the difference between being childlike and childish, and Russell Brand to me is childish, which is not attractive, particularly. But they also make him more cynical at the same time.
Yeah.
There's this degree of cynicism that is absolutely absent, not only from the character of Arthur in 1981, but the entire film. Like, there is not a moment of cynicism other than from characters we are not meant to like.
Can I give an example of his cynicism?
Yeah, please.
Okay, so we mentioned Gloria.
Yeah.
When we were talking about the first one. Well, in this one, we do get a Gloria character. In this one, it's Tiffany. So Gloria, first of all, from a movie making standpoint, Gloria is allowed to be a character.
Yeah.
Tiffany's not.
No, she's just a sexy girl.
Now, she ends up stealing from him. And Hobson comes in and like goes through her purse and finds like things she was stealing from Arthur. And Arthur's reaction to this is, "Oh, of course you did." And like, I think his reaction is funny, but I don't think it's actually helping them build a character that we like.
Yeah. Because
his basic reaction is, "Well, of course you did. Leave.
Yeah.
You can leave."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to give you another example.
Sure.
So in this version, his important parent is his mother, not his father.
Yes.
We learned that his father died.
Can I tell you something interesting about that?
Yeah.
So in the movie, like, he loves his father. And he describes his father like dropping dead at 44.
Yeah.
That was because of Steve Gordon. Yeah.
Why do you want to tell me that? That makes me like it more.
I know.
That breaks my heart. That's so sweet.
Like, when we get to the point where we say whether they cared about the original, I know
You
where
just
I
take
stand.
that into consideration.
Yeah.
So anyway, he goes to see his mother, who is Geraldine James, who is the Marilla that we loved from Anne with an E.
Episode 1.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. If you want us to hear us talk about how much we love Geraldine James, go all the way back to episode 1 of this podcast. And she said, they have the same exchange that you mentioned in the original movie. She says, "If you don't marry this girl, I'm going to cut you. You're cut off."
Because she's kind of a combination of his dad and his grandmother.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He has the same reaction, which is, "What, you mean cut off from the family?" But the way that he says it isn't genuine.
No.
The way that he says it is that he knows it's about the money, and he's like joking almost. And it makes him less pleasant of a character.
Yes.
Right? That his first reaction isn't, "But I love you and I want to spend time with you. You're saying I can't do that anymore?" Like, that's one of the sweetest things about Dudley Moore as Arthur, like one of the nicest things that he does in the movie, and they have made that moment cynical.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think it's such a weird thing to look at because everyone's got an opinion about this.
Yeah.
Like, everyone who cares has an opinion. We have an opinion because we've seen it. I think the filmmakers have an opinion. Do you know who has an opinion, who has a very strong opinion that Russell Brand should not have taken this part?
Russell Brand?
Yep. He came out years later and was like, "This was at a period in my career where I was taking anything,
Yeah.
and I shouldn't have taken this." He specifically said, he alluded to the quality of the script. So I do like to think, he is not sitting here with us.
No, he is not.
I do like to think that he still would have taken it if the script was better. But it wasn't.
Yeah.
It's not a very strong script. Because, and I bring this up for a very specific reason, this may be contentious. This may set me apart from a lot of people. I really like Russell Brand. I think Russell Brand is really funny. And I laughed many times during this movie. I think his version of Arthur is a really funny character. The problem isn't that he isn't funny. The problem isn't that he isn't kind and endearing the way the original is.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, like one of my notes is that Russell Brand, one thing I really like is that from immediately 2 minutes in, Russell Brand isn't playing Dudley Moore, which would have been a mistake.
Yeah, that would have been a terrible
Huge mistake.
Yeah.
Instead, he's playing Russell Brand.
Yeah.
And just in the exact same way that Dudley Moore was playing Dudley Moore.
Yeah.
I think that part works. And that's something I respect about the choices that they made. And I don't wish he didn't take it. I wish he took it and that the script was better.
Yeah.
I wish it was a better movie.
Yeah, like here's an example of like something that they were clearly trying to convey something to the audience and they didn't know how to do it and it just made it weird.
Yeah.
Like this is the sort of the same scene. His mother is sort of expounding on all of his past transgressions. Like he keeps getting drunk and ending up in the newspaper and this and that. And here's what I want you to do. I want you to marry Susan because of all these reasons. Like Susan works for her. She's like high up in she's like a director in the company.
Yeah. We'll talk about Susan.
We'll talk about Susan in a second. But instead of just having her say these things or like, I don't know, doing some kind of flashback or montage, what they do is they have mom give a PowerPoint.
Oh, yeah, the stupid PowerPoint.
They have mom give like sort of an interactive PowerPoint in her office to her son. And the implication is that like, I mean, I assume she had her assistant make it, but like the implication is someone had to put this PowerPoint together in anticipation of this visit of Arthur to the office. Like it's very strange.
This is a huge pet peeve of mine in movies where people like use technology in a way that technology doesn't work.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't even seem like she had this prepared. Like he brings up something and she goes, "Oh, you're talking about Susan?" Hits her remote control and suddenly Susan is on her TV.
Yeah, and it's like a video PowerPoint. Like she's moving and is like sort of interactive.
Yeah, like that's not how things work.
Yeah, it's really odd.
Yeah, I hate that. I hate that.
It's really odd. So let's talk about Susan.
Shall we?
Because we meet Susan and then we meet another love interest.
Now, I want to go back for a second because in the 1981 version, we talk about how like Susan's dad is like the closest thing the movie has to an antagonist.
Yeah.
And even then, he's not really an antagonist.
Yeah.
And we like Susan.
Yeah.
She's like a likable, interesting character.
Yeah.
She's just totally wrong for Arthur.
That's right.
And actually cares about him and wants to be with him in her own way.
Yep.
It's a little different this time.
Yeah.
How is it different?
Well, she's evil.
Yeah. She's a villain.
Yeah.
She and her dad are villains.
Literally the worst.
And just so people can picture them, this is Jennifer Garner and Nick Nolte.
Yeah.
Jennifer Garner, I will say, I was happy to see her play against type.
Yeah.
Because I don't see her playing, I don't think I've ever seen her play a character like this.
She seemed like she was having fun.
Yes.
As a human being.
Yes.
And good for her.
But she's the bad guy in this.
Yeah.
And Nick Nolte is evil.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm interrupting.
No. You're not interrupting. Like there's a scene where like Nick Nolte like threatens Arthur with a buzzsaw.
Okay, so there's a scene in the original when basically Arthur goes to propose to Susan, and he ends up instead having a conversation with her father. And it's one of the funniest scenes in the movie because of a moose head on the wall. I won't spoil it.
Don't spoil it.
But in that scene, Susan's dad basically says, like, if you break something along the lines, if you break my daughter's heart, I'll kill you.
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
And
like,
he tells a really threatening story about a time in the past where he did kill someone.
Yeah. He's very threatening. It's very overt. But he's not like actively threatening Arthur's life in that moment.
Right.
Instead, in this way, so her dad is in real estate.
Yeah.
And he's a builder.
He's a builder.
And so Arthur goes to visit him at like a building that is currently being constructed. And there is this scene that happens between Russell Brand and Nick Nolte in this unfinished like penthouse wherein Nick Nolte threatens Russell Brand's life with a table saw.
Table saw.
It is just weird. It because it is so poorly constructed and so poorly written, it never even gets to the point where I was like, this was disturbing.
Yeah.
It wasn't disturbing because it never felt anything more than just a bad scene in a movie.
It is neither funny nor threatening nor an interesting combination of both. we're literally just going, what the fuck is going on?
Like, I was just intensely aware of the actors on set doing their shots and waiting for the camera setup and doing their reverse shot, and an editor putting it together, and everyone going, look, maybe the audience just won't care about this scene. Let's move on to the next one.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't work even a little.
Can I tell you one positive thing that I liked?
I would love for you to do that, because I kind of liked this movie.
I really enjoyed that both Arthur and Susan, both in subtle ways, seem to embrace the concept of casual bisexuality.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Like at one point, Arthur's telling a story. He's like, yeah, I was in a gay bar in Amsterdam. It's like, cool, Arthur.
Yeah.
Like, what were you doing there? Having fun, I bet. And then there's another point where Arthur is talking to Susan about all the reasons their marriage would not work. And he says, I don't love you. And she says, that is fine. And he says, I like other girls. And she says, so do I. Bring one home sometime. And it's just this little throwaway line. But we both looked at each other and we were like, cool.
Yeah, that's cool.
Cool. Why not?
Yeah, she's having fun with this.
Yeah,
she's clearly having fun. But then there's like a scene at the end of the movie where she like there's the really stupid thing where like the audience clearly knows that this is a bad person.
Yeah.
But other characters don't know.
Right.
And then of course they reveal themselves by saying something unbelievably shitty towards the end, and all the other characters finally realize how shitty a person they are. And she does a thing at the end where she like it's at the wedding.
Yeah.
And she's like, I only wanted you for your money. And that's the thing that Geraldine James goes like, I never knew she felt that way.
Yeah.
It's like, you didn't.
You did
You
know.
really didn't.
That's untrue. You
I'm
knew.
pretty sure you knew.
You knew.
Yeah. And Nick Nolte is... I love Nick Nolte. He's crazy in this.
Incomprehensible.
He was probably there for like a week. I think he probably did like a few days of shooting or something like that. I think this movie was made on the cheap.
Yeah.
But he is insane. He's a crazy person in this.
Yeah,
and not an on purpose crazy
No.
person.
Just an unpleasant to watch. There's one character we haven't talked about yet.
Oh, who's that?
That is...
Bitterman. We haven't mentioned Bitterman, right? Luis Guzman.
I mean, he's actually really funny.
He's super funny.
Especially when he dresses up as Robin to Arthur's Batman.
And Arthur can see his tummy.
And she's shaving because Robin doesn't have a beard.
Right. I have Luis Guzman is a part of this movie that I have zero problems with at all. That is clearly who you were talking about, right? There's no other main characters.
No. Well, there's more than one character that we haven't talked about yet.
Oh, shit.
Let's talk about Naomi, who in the original is Linda Marola.
Oh, right. Yes.
We almost so inconsequential is this character that we almost forgot to mention her.
Wait, you're talking about Linda Marola, one of the like strongest female characters in the history of like American filmed comedy. Is that an overstatement?
That is not an overstatement.
Okay.
That is an enjoyable character who we like.
Right.
So, here's what they did. I mean, this is almost past the peak of Manic Pixie Dream Girl. Like, I feel like that was like a late 90s, 2000s trope, and it's now 2011, and we're still doing it in unpleasant ways. But this Manic Pixie Dream Girl is so Manic Pixie that, like, her character behaves in ways that don't make sense.
Right.
And, first of all, she's played by Greta Gerwig.
Mm-hmm.
She and Russell Brand have zero chemistry.
None whatsoever.
None whatsoever.
Yeah.
It is like watching paint dry.
Like I was saying before, how I think Russell Brand is actually really right for this role, but he was failed by the script and the direction.
Yeah.
She's not right for this.
I don't think so.
Like, and she's not a person I have anything against. Like, I've never seen Frances Ha, and apparently it's great.
Yeah.
And she's also a really talented writer and director in her own right.
Yes.
I have nothing against her whatsoever.
Yes.
She's not this part.
She's not good in this. She was failed somehow.
Yes.
Whether by casting or script or direction or all three. But so instead of she's an unlicensed tour guide who is also a children's book writer and illustrator on the side.
So she's not even, though.
Yeah.
Like, that's the other thing I am so interested in how just batshit this is. We've seen the Manic Pixie Dream Girl before.
Yeah.
And I feel like the Manic Pixie Dream Girl, if she, like, in any movie, she said, oh, I also illustrate children's books.
Yeah.
Like, that's something Hollywood does.
Yeah, sure.
Like, I know people who illustrate children's books.
Yeah.
They're pretty fucking normal people.
We actually know someone that does what like literally writes and illustrates wonderful children's books about New York City.
Yes.
Like that's what she does in this movie.
Right.
But she's also weird,
Yeah.
right?
Here's the thing, though. she's not a children's book illustrator on the side. They do this super weird thing that I feel like I never see, which is she is already a manic pixie dream girl, but then we have another character that is trying to make her more of a manic pixie dream girl. Like, her whole thing is
You're right.
she's still not reaching for her dreams because her dream is to be a children's book illustrator.
Right.
And Arthur is the person to come along, of course, the man to come along and tell her she has worth.
Right.
And
You're right. She is an unlicensed tour guide with an idea for a children's book.
right?
And he says, you should write that children's book. It sounds great. And then
Yeah.
she does.
And I've never seen that. I've
Yeah.
never seen a thing where they've taken someone who is clearly a manic pixie dream girl and present them in the movie as if they're not, and then try to encourage them to be more of that.
Yeah.
That's never what I see.
I mean, it's kind of like A Star is Born, but not really.
like, not at all.
Yeah.
Like, she gets her book published at the end, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, yeah,
whatever.
whatever.
It doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
She's, like, the thing about her performance, she's so quiet and reserved and naturalistic, but the dialogue and the scenes are like heightened comedy.
Yeah.
It's just a crazy mismatch.
Yeah. And their relationship was the thing. I know that you were saying like there were things in the movie that we really think are true tributes to the 1981 movie.
Yes.
But their relationship was the thing that made me think someone didn't understand what was so charming about the love story in
Right.
1981. And here's an example.
Okay.
In 1981, Arthur takes Linda on a date, and I think she kind of thinks they're going to go somewhere fancy because he's rich.
Yeah.
And he takes her to like a shooting gallery on Coney Island,
Mhm.
like an arcade. And they have a great time.
Yeah.
Because he's so delighted with everything. And he's winning tickets and like shooting targets. And they're just having, like, he won't even let her play because he's having so much fun. And they have a great time together. And that's why she likes him, because he's a person.
Mhm.
And in this, just by contrast, their first date, he rents out Grand Central Station at rush hour. Grand Central Terminal. They do make a point in the movie that it is GCT, not GCS.
Uh-huh.
He rents out Grand Central Terminal at rush hour and somehow does something with all the commuters, which is not a thing you can do, and like turns it into a beautiful like dinner for two with rose petals scattered everywhere and like music playing.
There's like gymnasts.
Like there's a show, and she's impressed.
That's the problem. The problem isn't that he does it. The problem is her reaction
Her
to
reaction
it.
to it is, oh my God, this is so cool. And she's supposed to be the one person that doesn't care about and isn't impressed by his money. Because she does later, they have the same scene where he tries to give her money and she rejects it.
Mhm.
But like, she clearly cares about his money and
Yeah.
is 100% charmed by it, which just drives against them having any chemistry whatsoever, because she clearly doesn't like him for himself. She likes him because he's doing this unbelievably grand romantic gesture towards her.
Right.
Final character.
Yeah.
We have not talked about Hobson.
Hodgman?
John Hodgman is in this. Yes, you are right. And not like a tiny role. Like, he
No.
has like multiple scenes.
Multiple scenes.
He plays, so Arthur tries to get a job, and he goes to work at Dylan's Candy Bar, which is such product placement for Dylan's Candy Bar, which is a real place in New York. And John Hodgman plays his boss,
Uh-huh.
Or at least the guy that's training him on the register. And it's fine.
It's fine.
It's fine.
I've never seen John Hodgman not be good in something.
He's perfectly fine.
Yep. But no, Hobson.
Hobson. So this kind of falls into the female characters a little underwritten, which I kind of just mentioned without explicitly saying, because I don't like what they did to the love interest by making her a manic pixie dream girl. But it seems like they tried to just kind of put more women in the movie than the original.
Which we've said in the past that, like, bad representation is better than no representation.
I mean, I guess. Like, I have no problem with his mother being his, like, parent.
Yeah.
And obviously, in the original, there is a contrast between his real father and Hobson, who is his father figure, because at the end, he calls Hobson his father.
Yes.
He says that my father died.
Mhm.
This is my father.
Which is in Sharabi, too.
Yeah, it is.
It's, like, very central to Sharabi.
Yeah. So in this, it's his mother, so of course it has to be his mother figure, his nanny.
Uh-huh.
And let me say one thing that I did like.
Yes.
There is a tribute to John Gielgud in this,
Mm-hmm.
because there is one point where where Arthur is doing an impression of something Hobson says, and Hobson, Helen Mirren says, "I don't talk like that," and he says, "Yes, you do." She doesn't. John Gielgud does.
Yes.
He's doing a John Gielgud impression.
Right.
And I thought that was subtle. And if that's not what they were trying to do, I kind of don't want to know because I thought it was really sweet.
Mhm.
And there weren't that many moments in this movie that I liked.
I think the best scenes in the movie are often scenes between Russell Brand and Dame Helen Mirren.
Yeah. I mean, I would agree with that. I just don't think she can. I hate to say that Dame Helen Mirren can't do something or was unsuccessful because I love her and I think she is amazing
Yep.
in everything.
Yep.
I haven't really seen her do much comedy before, and this might be why. She just can't do it like John Gielgud can. A lot of the lines are really similar, and they just don't hit like John Gielgud did them.
I want to go back to something that we talked about before, which is that I don't think John Gielgud succeeded in this part in a comedic way because of what he brought to it. I think he was willing to put himself out there and be directed by someone who understood comedy
Yep.
and surrounded by people who had a really good sense of comedy.
Yeah.
And was willing to let them help mold him into a funnier character.
Yeah.
I think Dame Helen Mirren is absolutely willing to do that.
Yes.
I think that the crew failed her.
I agree with that because I think it's kind of the same situation. Like she may not be naturally, she just maybe doesn't have as much experience with comedy, but that doesn't mean she couldn't be funny if someone helped her, but no one was helping her.
Like, I think she's actually been funny in a lot of things.
Yeah.
Like she's done like action comedies and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's true.
But like, I think she's been funnier in her career than John Gielgud ever did. So I don't blame her for this. I
don't blame her.
I feel really bad blaming like Jason Weiner because this is his only movie, but I'm gonna blame the direction.
If I was ever honored and blessed enough to get Helen Mirren into a project I was directing and she wasn't good in it, you can blame me.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah.
I think we're fine. I think we're in the clear to blame the director.
Uh-huh.
For sure.
But I do want to go back. I do think, she's not John Gielgud.
Yeah.
She doesn't rise to the heights that his like amazing performance for the ages.
Oscar-winning performance.
Right? But I do think she's here for it.
Yeah.
I think she's doing a good job. And I legitimately believe that there is really good chemistry between her and Russell Brand.
I think you're right.
Like really good chemistry.
Yeah.
I think they do good work together.
Yeah.
And I do think the entire segment of the movie that involves Hobson's death and like Arthur at her bedside.
Yeah.
I don't really have any problems with.
Yeah.
I actually think that's the best part of the movie.
Yeah, because we see her die. Like we didn't see John Gielgud die.
No.
Like, we didn't see the moment that he died.
It's just suddenly an empty bed.
Yeah, which was very affecting. But in this, we like really see like his reaction and like the nurse coming in and everything.
And I think it's shot badly and edited badly,
It
and
is.
the music is like too sappy. But I think the performances are spot on.
Yeah.
I have no problem with them.
Yeah. Yes, I wouldn't be surprised if I heard that like they really enjoyed working with each other, for example.
Totally.
Yeah.
But just like going back, there's so much of this movie that I was not engaged with.
Yeah, I think that's really what it comes down to. Like it had some good moments and it had some moments that we both liked and it had some moments that we disagreed with. And at the end of the day, I didn't find it engaging, like to watch from beginning to end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that if you don't like Russell Brand, this movie is kind of unsalvageable.
Yeah.
Like if you don't respond to him, I'm one of the people that's a big fan.
Yeah.
So that salvaged it for me.
It clearly didn't work for me.
But that's a qualitative thing. That's not an objective thing.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Speaking of objective,
Yes.
should we do our quadrants?
Yes, the most objective thing we've ever done on our show.
Yes.
So do you want to look at Sharabi?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Do you think they cared about the original?
I don't know.
This is hard to say,
It's
right?
hard to say. Just again, like we don't. It's so possible that stuff got lost in translation. I don't think so. Do you think they cared truly? I don't think they cared.
I want to say they did.
Okay.
Because so much of Arthur is in it.
Okay.
Like,
I mean, they did a great job, so I'm willing to say they cared.
yeah, and they did, and it was successful.
It was great. Yeah, we
Yeah.
really liked it.
Yeah, they cared, and it is successful.
Yeah.
Then we have Arthur 2011.
Yeah.
Did they care about the original?
I think they did.
Absolutely.
I really think they did.
Yeah. I don't think anyone here didn't want to do a good job.
No.
Like, I think they all knew what they were getting into. I don't think Russell Brand would have come out and said he wouldn't have done it if he didn't care
Yeah.
about the original.
Yeah.
Like, if he didn't care about the original, he probably just wouldn't have said anything about it. Is it successful?
No.
It's not.
Sorry to say.
I wanted to like it so badly.
Yeah.
And even though there is stuff in it that I like, it's just not successful.
Yeah.
But this was a super fun episode. Like, if you haven't seen Arthur, please see Arthur.
Yeah.
It's like, if you've spent an hour and a half listening to us talk about it, I assume you've already seen it. But if you haven't, please just
spend the same amount of time watching the movie. It is about an hour and a half.
It's so good. It's so good. Well, this has been Adapter Parish. If you'd like to find us online, we're on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at AdaptCast. And if you tweet about the show, don't forget to use the AdaptCast hashtag. You can join our groups on Facebook and Goodreads, and you can also find and follow me on Letterboxd. If you have anything to say that's longer than a tweet, you can always send an email to adapterparishcast@gmail.com. If you'd like to support the show, there are 2 great ways you can do it. First, tell a friend. Second, a rating and review on your podcast platform of choice would be greatly appreciated. And that's all. Sweetie, do you know what I'm going to do?
What's that?
I'm gonna end this episode.
I'll alert the media.